Welcome. Thank you for joining us today at our open house. We are always happy to welcome our prospective families to campus, but after a year of no visitors, I am particularly pleased to see you in our auditorium today. Yeah, round of applause. I am Nina Newman. I'm the Director of Admission and Financial Access at King School, and I'd like to speak to the students present today. As you will learn, King is a student-centered school, a school where the student experience is our primary focus. And today, it is your experience that I'd like to address. At King, we are big on research, big on asking questions, and learning more. We know that students with inquiring minds are more receptive to a deeper understanding of the subject matter and the world around us. While the process of applying to independent schools can be daunting, I want you to think of it as a research project. You will gather information on schools on our websites and through admission materials. There will be fact-checking and note-taking, lots of discussions around the dinner table. But today is actually a very exciting day. Today is the day to interview primary sources. If you don't know what a primary source is, it is someone with firsthand experience in your research topic. So King students and teachers are excellent primary sources for you. This is your chance to ask questions about the school from the people who are here every day. What is it like to be new here? What opportunities will I have? How will I be challenged? How will I be inspired? How will I get help when I need it? Okay, let's get to it. Right now, I'm going to turn it over to our interim head of school, Carolyn Maoz, our head of upper school, Marnie Sadlowsky, and our head of middle school, Josh Deitch, who are going to talk a little bit about our program, and when they finish up, we'll get to those questions that I mentioned. Thank you.
Thanks, Nina.
Thanks, Nina.
Welcome, everyone. Can you all hear me in the back? We've done a lot of mic checking. Can you hear okay? Great. We're all so happy that you are joining us today. We know that you are considering a significant change of some kind for one or more members of your family. Some of you may already have children at independent schools, and for you, you're thinking about a decision about the timing of a change for your child, and I'm sure trying to find the best possible match for your child. Others of you here may be considering independent schools for the first time, and this may feel like a big leap. Regardless of your individual situation, we recognize the importance of this decision for every one of you in the room, students and parents, because we know that where you go to school matters so much, and it will be one of the most important decisions that you make. And we also appreciate that it's a significant commitment to decide to join an independent school. We hope that by the end of this program and the end of the day, with the opportunities to meet people out in the tent, you'll feel a bit more secure in your decision making. You'll understand the unique character of King School. You'll have many of your questions answered, and you will feel very comfortable to continue to ask questions, continue to learn about our school, our values, and our approach to teaching and learning. So I'm going to begin the conversation by talking briefly about what I think, as an educator and a parent, you all should be looking for in a school, specifically in an independent school. Then I'm going to ask Josh or Marnie or both to address the questions in a way explaining how King answers these questions. So let's get started. No doubt, every school that you look at will talk about academic excellence. Here are some of the questions that I think you should be asking when you hear that term. How does the school define academic excellence? How much of student learning is inquiry-based, and what does that look like day to day? How does the school nurture curiosity, given that we know that it's an important skill for success in school and out in the job market? And importantly, you should ask, can you give concrete examples of what that looks like in your school? So I'm going to start with that list of questions, and I'm going to ask Marnie if you can respond to one or more of them.
Absolutely. Can everyone also hear me in the back? Wonderful, thank you so much. I just want to echo Nina's earlier comment about how wonderful it is to have people in this space. I think when you're an educator, and I've been in education now for 25 years, never in a million years did I imagine that my role as a leader in education would take place with no parents on campus. I chose to work in an independent school because of the relationship between teachers, administrators, and families, and of course the students at the center. And last year, trying to achieve that vision, obviously took place over Zoom a lot, but even though the students were here and we were student-centered for them, having the families involved is key to independent school education. So I think the academic excellence question begins for King with a relationship with the family, your expectations, and who your child is. And now just speaking to the students, academic excellence at King puts you at the center, whether you're looking at 6th grade or 10th grade, whatever entry point you're here for. And then going a little bit broader, I would say in the upper school, academic excellence, and I think Josh will probably echo this in the middle school as well, we're quite aligned. Academic excellence is rooted at King in the rigors of the liberal arts and sciences. So I think most of you know we're talking about mathematics, we're talking about science, we're talking about English, literature composition, history, historiography, certainly the fine arts, the performing arts, world languages, and then the interdisciplinary, the connections among and between those and others that we consider to be the traditional liberal arts and sciences, right? Here at King, we believe that an academically excellent education is grounded in the questions that those fields of study call us to ask. Our essential questions as a school are, who am I, who are we, and how do I know what's true? That gets out a little bit of the research orientation that Nina was referring to earlier. Who am I and who are we are really, really challenging questions. How do mathematicians answer those questions? What skills and proclivities does that particular field of study require of us in order to answer questions in that field? What skills, what content area, and certainly what understandings, deep understandings, do we need to have? I was an English teacher for years, also taught history. My father was a mathematician and a physicist. And he and I had many conversations over the years when I was growing up about math being a language, and he wanted me to learn to speak that language. Now, I didn't learn to speak it as well as many of our students at King do, because I was given the choice not to go deep into mathematical thinking and expression. And at King, I have to say, from our littlest learners in our Reggio Emilia three-year-old program all the way up to our kids in advanced research programs here in the 12th grade and 11th grade, our students learn to speak math. They learn to think like a scientist, ask questions like a scientist, to rub shoulders with authors and learn to grapple with any text that comes before them. So I think students, you know that there are many genres of literature, right? There's poetry, there's journalism, there's the novel form, there's theater. We're sitting on a stage right now. Our students are working on Macbeth. The English department and the theater department are working together, because guess what? If you learn to read theater, read plays, right? They're meant to be performed. So how do you engage with the spoken word? I could go on and on, right? Seeing the world like a visual artist, hearing and understanding the world like a musician might. These are all really rigorous and deep academic activities that at King we call our students to every single day. So in the upper school, traditional, liberal arts and sciences, getting really good at the amazing, amazing questions that those fields call us to ask. And then, Carol, I think the second part of that is the way that you do that. So an academically excellent education in our school is also tied to what happens in the classroom. How is a teacher engaging with learning to speak math, to think algebraically, to engage in the insights of the biological sciences, or to be a historian? So we use, and you'll hear this throughout our conversation today, a really student-centered approach in the classroom. It's inquiry-based education. This should not be a weird phrase to any of us, right? Learning to ask really, really, really good questions is actually at the core of achievement. Because if you can't ask good questions and then you don't know what to do or how to answer them, right? What are you achieving? So for us in the upper school in particular, we're very, very concerned, and I don't mean concerned as in anxious and worried. We think very deeply, we're very nerdy, I guess, if you will, about planning learning experiences in each of those fields and disciplines that call students to truly grapple in an engaged way with the content. So learning to ask good questions, inquiry-based education. We also feel very strongly that those atmospheric conditions in the classroom need to call students to engage personally. And that requires a respectful atmospheric condition in which you also are not afraid to take risks, right? So an academically excellent experience for students requires that they feel comfortable engaging, right? If you're a student sitting in the classroom right now, you know what it feels like to be in what we call a Harkness discussion or a seminar style discussion, and your teacher expects you to grapple with a question, an excellent question that that teacher or a fellow student has asked. And you're expected to participate, and you're quiet, and you're shy, and you're reflective. 3 great qualities, right? And yet you're learning to speak and engage and collaborate with your peers, which is a key academic skill in the humanities in particular. Your heart's beating. How do you speak out, right? At King, we believe, first of all, in practice, you have to try it out, but also in realizing that everyone is going to respond to you, nod and smile, like some of you are doing. I'm assuming there's a smile behind. Thank you you're a very responsive audience member, so that's the kind of thing you teach in a seminar setting at King, right? How do you look at a peer and nod and listen so that they feel that they can take a risk to share something and to really engage deeply? So atmospheric conditions in the classroom are crucial, especially if you're going to make mistakes, which you have to do to learn, and that you're going to be confident in seeing that teacher as a resource and seeing your colleagues as resources. You need to open up and be vulnerable. So subject matter, deep, rich, challenging content, pedagogical practices in the classroom, how your teachers actually teach you, and the atmospheric conditions in the community, in the learning community, in the classroom, hallways, of course, elsewhere. Those are 3 really important components to us when we talk about academic excellence. And I, Josh, I'm gonna, turn it to you. I see so much alignment across our divisions, but I know it looks a little bit different with the younger learners.
Absolutely. So I'm going to do what everybody else did. Can everybody in the back hear me as well? Awesome. I'm seeing thumbs up. That's great. So yeah, thank you, Marnie. And again, really awesome to see everybody in this space and in this room at one time. So I think one of the things that's really interesting about our middle school approach that is in direct alignment and in support of the upper school approach, especially when we talk about the concepts of academic excellence, is it goes right back to those 3 questions that Marnie said at the beginning, the essential questions of who am I, who are we, and how do I know what is true? That's what we build our middle school pedagogical, instructional, curricular approach around. In fact, to the point that every single grade in the middle school specifically is built around a concept of one of those questions. So our 6th graders spend a lot of time in their 6th grade community asking the questions, who am I and who are we? And I think one of the cool things that you'll see over and over when we talk about academic excellence at King is that it is a question, it's not an answer. And one of the things we often do is we keep asking questions that don't always have a right answer. We want students to be able to understand that our world exists in shades of gray, and there's always opportunities to explore and go deeper and understand things from a different way of looking at it, a different perspective, or integrating a new piece of knowledge that we just came up with. And sometimes in 6th grade, that's really important. Our 7th grade program takes it from the who am I and who are we to how do others see me? What is my, what am I projecting out into the world? And then our 8th grade curriculum focuses on the concept of what is the community, what is my community, and what is my role in the community? And so Our middle school curriculum and our middle school program and academic excellence is very much rooted in those same arts and sciences traditions, and we use those kind of curricular, course-based content area understandings to really drive at underlying questions and skills that are so important in the middle school. I think one of the things that is so important in a middle schooler's experience here at King is the understanding that the skills they learn in English, the idea that I'm going to sit down and find some information, I'm going to access that information, I'm going to evaluate whether that information is meaningful to me, and then I'm going to eventually communicate that information and my understanding of that information in an increasingly sophisticated way. That is not just an English skill. That is a skill that we use every day in our everyday lives. And I think that is such an important thing that we approach our community and our curriculum and our program with, is when I'm sitting up here right now and I'm preparing for this conversation, this talk, and I'm writing my notes down as a professional here, I'm not saying I'm doing English now. Instead, I'm thinking and I'm sitting there and I'm doing my job. And the same way when you all come in and you're wearing your masks and you're sitting 2 feet apart or 2 seats apart, we're not doing science. This is the work we do because of what we've already learned. We know how to access that information and and evaluate what's the meaningful stuff and what's the right stuff for us. And so at the heart of that kind of questioning and building skills and building understandings, understanding how I'm going to take notes, understanding how I'm going to study for the upcoming assessment. At the heart of all that is also this progression that we really focus on in the middle school from the concept of student to scholar. When we think about a student, we think about someone who takes information in to take information in. It is a passive experience. It's someone who takes as much as they can and owns it. And that's great, and that's really important because we want to know stuff. But at King, at the same time, knowing stuff isn't the end result of an education and isn't the end result of learning. Instead, what we do at King is we take what we're learning, we integrate it to what our other understanding of what's going on and what we're learning, we integrate it to what we know about the world already, and then we figure out, what have I learned that allows me to impact my community, the folks around me, or understand myself a little better in my role and connection to those as well. And so at the end of the day, our middle schoolers have a wonderful opportunity and a wonderful program to explore a variety of things. We make sure in the middle school program that students never run out of runway, right? There are 8th graders in our school who are taking geometry honors. There are 7th graders who take a class called Algebra, Number Theory, and Probability. Our 8th graders also have the opportunity to take majors in things like digital arts and visual arts and deeply into a drama and a theater program, because we believe deeply in the idea that, especially in these really important young adolescent years where you're figuring out who you are and what my passions are and what makes sense for me, and I keep coming back to those questions of who am I and who are we, in those moments in time, we want to give our students a wide variety of opportunities, a wide variety of experiences, and then layer that on top of a really good foundation of skills and understandings and build them into an understanding, a strong understanding of themselves, so when they leave us and move on to the upper school, they are ready to dive deep into specific areas or continue to explore in a variety of different areas that are going to just open up in even more so in the upper school. So there's really a lot of ways we talk about that, but that's kind of at the heart of it, is that we build and layer the ideas of skills and understandings onto the concept of questions. How do I know what's a good question? How do I find information? And then access, explore, and communicate it to the world.
Thanks to both of you. So as I was listening to your responses, it made me think about when you were both talking about interdisciplinary work. The 3 topics that I'm going to ask people to respond to are actually interrelated. They're not discrete questions, and you're going to see that in the next question that I'm going to ask. Because I think that a second area that families should explore and understand in the process are the ways in which each student is going to be known as a learner and an individual. And research has certainly supported what we know is that students thrive in an environment in which they are known, seen, heard, appreciated, and feel safe. An atmosphere in which they can find and develop their voice. This same environment that I'm referring to is what we are talking about when we refer to diversity and inclusion at King. It's important at all ages, for sure, but I think we all are aware that that young adolescent time is a key time, and that is, again, refers back to the essential questions that we use at King. But Josh, I'm wondering if you can talk about in the middle school, how do you go about achieving this environment? How do the teachers get to know the students? In what ways? How do they build those relationships? And how do you make sure that the all-important question of how do kids find their voice, how does that happen?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think it's one that, back to the original conversation we were having right at the start, which is, that's a question that if I had a middle schooler, I'd be wanting to know from every school I looked at. And I think the thing that I would say right off the bat is, if you end up here, if you've heard me speak, one of the things I say over and over and over again about the young adolescent experience is that they are going through more change in this time in their life, from the grade 6 to grade 8, than any other time in their life, except for when they're born to when they're 3. They are growing socially, emotionally, cognitively, physically. I could keep going down the list. I'm just going to run out of things to talk about because that's everything that they're figuring out at that time. And so the first thing we do, the first thing we look for when we have people here and people working with your kids and your individual families is that we have people who deeply understand their content and are content area experts, and they teach those students and they know those students first and foremost. They are teachers of your students and your children. They are not teachers of science. They know science. They are teachers of science because they know how to communicate science to your children, and they know the unique age group the unique needs of this age group better than anyone else. And when you have that foundation, when you have that understanding of, I know what my students need, and it's not just I know what general students need around this age group, we're really good at that too, but I know what my students need because I get to know them as individuals, because we have an advisory program that I'll get into. We have a lot of our teachers are coaches. We get to know our students in a variety of ways, not just in the classroom, but around the school, so that we can tailor a curriculum directly to them. I will not promise you that you get to have an a la carte educational experience when you come to our school. Like one year you get to say, yeah, I don't want to do math this year. That said, we have a program that we are flexible and nimble enough to create a program that fits your child, as opposed to asking a child to fit our program. And I think that kind of thing really is a wonderful start to what our teachers are able to do, which is to develop a sense of community. And when you're at King, you hear the idea of intentionally developing community over and over and over again. And the example I always give is, we are in this room together. And we are in this room together, and if one of us stood up and turned off the lights, which I'm pretty sure Amy would fight us about, if one of us turned off the lights, we would all be in the dark. We all have power over one another. We have the ability to impact one another's experience. And all it takes is one person to stand up and turn that light back on, and we're all back in the light. And that kind of an understanding of power and impact on each other and responsibility to one another is so important in the middle school experience, because it is the time in our lives when we feel like we have the least control over ourselves, but we want the most. And so we help our students understand that they have a responsibility to each other. We help our students understand that leadership looks like a lot of different things. It can be someone standing up on stage, or the young students that you are going to meet in a few minutes as you go outside and go through the fair and talk to them about their experiences at King. Those very visible aspects of leadership are right there. And leadership also looks like that moment in time when I give someone a fist bump in the hallway because they're having a tough day. It looks like that moment in time when I see someone sitting alone at the lunch table and I sit down with them. Or it's as simple as seeing something that someone else is doing that takes courage and following them and giving them support as well. And our students are really designed to are kind of primed to do all that and figure out what works for them. And so one of the primary ways we do that is in a really well-structured and articulated advisory program. All of our students will start the day, every day, in advisory. It is our community within our community. In a time in our lives when we're not sure if we're always going to find our place and our people change, and our places change on a daily, weekly, if not hourly basis, the advisory is a place where we come in and we know that we fit in. We have a place where we belong. That advisor then becomes the point person for your individual kid. They become the person who is advocating for them, supporting them, perhaps laying a safety net underneath them, or giving them a little kick when they need that kick. And all of that is there for our middle schoolers to understand that they have a connection to their teachers. And when they have that connection, and when they have that trust, and they feel safe, And I think there's a big difference sometimes when we have conversations, especially when Carol mentioned the concept of the idea of making sure that we have the ability to hear diverse voices and include all those voices. When we talk about the different, there's a major difference between the concept of safety and comfort. Right. When we talk about safety, we need to have a school where we are able to feel like we can be ourselves. And that means that I can try new things. I could try out for that play, or I can try that advanced math course that I'm not quite sure about, and I know I've got my support. And I need to be safe enough to be uncomfortable. Learning doesn't happen unless we're uncomfortable and unless we have aspects of ourselves that we're not quite sure about. If we do everything and play it safe, we're never going to be the best versions of ourselves. And so I'll just leave it with the idea that our students understand that they have a real idea of value and impact, and their voice matters in a way that it doesn't always in the middle school experience. And I'll leave it with an example, which is if you have a chance to walk through the middle school building, on the second floor we now have a 7th grade bulletin board, and one of the things they just did in their advisory program was, we're a month into the school year, they asked our students, what makes King King in your opinion? And there's one on the board, and it resonates, and it's a theme throughout, but basically there's one on the board that basically says, the kindness, which is a core virtue at our school, the kindness of King has allowed me to feel like I can try things that I would have never done at my previous school. And like a teacher showed that to me, I was like, we're doing the right thing, we're doing a good job, and that's what you should be looking for when you look especially at a middle school experience.
So I have to just say, I'm the newest one here, and every time I hear Josh and Marnie speak, I get a little bit emotional, and I am really, really, I have to just say the word impressed by your passion for what you do, and so you model that for the faculty and staff, and you model that for your students, and I'm sure that you can hear that passion as well. Because of time, we're going to address one more question, and I'm going to leave that to Marnie. And what I want to talk about is this: the best schools provide opportunities for students to go broad and also to go deep, to continue to explore areas that they might not have even known that they were interested in, and at the same time, it allows them to follow their passions, to achieve at the highest levels in those areas, to develop deep understandings, to conduct extensive research, to gain real-world experience in those areas that are most relevant and meaningful to them. And I know at King we do that really well, and I'm going to ask Marnie if you could talk a little bit about some specific examples where that both broad and deep happen.
Absolutely. I actually am going to start in a slightly different place to answer your question, and I'm going to start with our college counseling approach, which doesn't seem like it would naturally fit into a question about going deep and broad, and certainly connecting to the approach that our middle school takes to raising up young scholars who want to go deep and also need to continue to go broad and to be skilled in those areas. We do a very special thing at King in terms of college counseling. We assign our students a college counselor in 9th grade. And I know that for some families that can be really startling, because it sounds as if, well, are you getting all hyped up about the college process too young? And what I want to say is that we have, after much thought, deliberation, and piloting of different approaches, we have found at King that starting in the 9th grade to have conversations about who am I and who am I in the world is actually deeply connected to the passions and the program and the curricular opportunities that that student might choose to participate in, be encouraged to participate in, and over the course of that child's 4 years in the upper school. So by having, we have a team approach to lots of things, as you'll learn at King, by having a college counselor who's knowing, seeing, understanding, and loving the child, right, the student, right alongside the teachers and the deans and the club leaders and the coaches and the theater directors and all the other adults who touch a student's life in a good high school, right, we actually have someone who has an eye on how I'm looking at the students in the front here, and to you in the back as well, how your narrative is going to be shaped over 4 years. And your narrative should be shaped by a broad program that calls you to all the things that we talked about at the beginning of this conversation, but also to guide you into taking advantage of what is there for you if you want to go deep. So here comes some specifics. I'll get to the specifics quickly because I know we're running out of time. King has a number of ways to get kids who are starting to feel like they have a proclivity or an interest in a particular area to go deep pretty quickly. We have a wide, an incredibly wide range for a high school of a range of electives that students take. And in addition to their core courses, we're incredibly proud of the expertise of our faculty who design courses that go deep in particular academic subject areas and also interdisciplinary subject areas. We, for example, have created diploma distinctions at King. We say minor, really. Majoring is really something you do in college, right? Because you're really majoring in liberal arts and sciences here, but you can minor in global studies, in leadership theory and practice, in STEM, in the STEM areas, in the visual arts, in world languages. You can major almost in the visual arts, frankly, at King. We have an incredible visual arts program that's also connected to our engineering and design approach, or courses in the upper school. So you could choose to take classes in world religions, in different social sciences. You don't have to get a diploma distinction, but at King you can take those classes if you're interested, and then you can go really deep if you want. We also have humanities research programs here at King. If you decide that you get really serious about a particular area in the humanities, we have a fellowship program. Before COVID, many of these programs are attached to travel, very rich and well-designed travel programs. Certainly we fully expect to jump back into those as soon as it's safe to do so. And we of course have programs that you're probably already aware of at King, an Aspire program, long acronym, the science department can explain it to you. Students can start in the second half of their sophomore year deciding that they want to take an advanced science research track and end up working in labs between the junior and senior year and throughout their junior year in particular, actually. They start then working in labs in the area, and also, as we've learned, we can do it remotely. So at major universities and in the field of industry. So lots of ways to go deep. I also want to say, and this is true in the middle school as well, that we have a really active club program here at King, and we do not consider our clubs to be extra. We consider them to be an intentional, well-designed approach to what we value and what we define as academic excellence, which is deep engagement with inquiry-based learning in the traditional liberal arts and sciences. So our debate team, our math team, our science Olympiad and math Olympiad in the middle school, these programs, Model UN, incredibly popular at King and just a normal approach to continuing the commitments we have to teaching and learning in the classroom. I'm looking at my admissions team here and wondering if I am going too long. There's Nina. Thank you, Nina. Yeah. So we want to transition to Q&A. Right. So I'll transition you. Certainly, I hope some of the things we've mentioned have piqued some interest and some good questions.
So just to frame this, we're going to take a few minutes to take questions and answers. In this setting, we're looking for sort of broad questions that might be of interest to many people. If you have specific coursework questions, there are lots of people outside department chairs and deans and teachers who can respond to those questions. And Josh, Marnie, and I are also going to be here at the end of this, and we can respond to your questions. But oftentimes there are some questions you would like to ask in this setting. So let's open it up for anyone who'd like to ask a question. And so, there we go. Yes.
Marnie, you mentioned that in 9th grade the kids are assigned a college counselor. Does that same counselor travel with them for all 4 years?
Yeah, the question was, if my child is assigned a college counselor in 9th grade, does that person travel with the student for 4 years? The answer is almost all of the time, yes. I say almost all of the time because we also have someone in the college counseling office who specializes in the NCAA process and, you know, coaches our athletes who are going to play at the next level. And we have a number of other folks on the team who specialize in particular areas if a student is specializing, like in the arts or performing arts or whatever. So we take a team approach. Every single counselor looks at every single child's trajectory, but that personal relationship, we want that to be consistent across the 4 years.
Thank you. If a student didn't grow up at King, meaning they didn't start in middle school, and they're coming in the upper school, is it a hard transition, or is it something that's a little bit more managed for that student?
Josh, you want to take that? I think it would be a good one for you.
Sure, no problem. So I know the middle and the upper school are very similar in this approach, which is the first thing I would say is that we are really intentional about making sure that students who come into our school, no matter when they come into our school, feel like they are part of the community. And so when you talk about it from the middle school perspective, we accept and bring in a number of new students every year. Students who come in 6th grade, it tends to be a bigger year, but 7th and 8th, we have a good handful of students that come in every year. And one of the things we say right off the bat, and you can say and hear over and over again, is like 2 weeks in, 3 weeks in, it's hard to tell the students who are new and the students who aren't. And one of the reasons is because we are really thoughtful about having a well-designed student ambassador program, and parent ambassador program, so that over the summer after your child or you might be admitted to the school, you're going to have people who reach out to you and be like, hey, you want to get together? For a middle schooler or a teenager, sometimes that's you're now on the text thread, good job. Those type of things. And sometimes for families, it's just making sure everyone knows where the school store is and can answer questions like that. So logistics, basics, having people who you recognize on your first day of school or in the orientation day, that's taken care of. Our upper school also has a really awesome opportunity that our middle school has to a certain extent too, but we have a really wonderful summer institute across the school for a variety of different courses, and that's a really great way to get a student used to the school experience and used to the King experience too, so that they're used to the teachers who teach those classes are primarily King faculty members, not all, but most. The kids who attend those classes are very much often King students, with a mix of new students and other students as well. We also in the upper school have a really wonderful preseason program that allows students to come in and play on a sport and play on a team. And I'm sure you'll hear, if you're interested in that, you'll hear more about kind of our athletics approach to that and how we have really advanced and high-level athletics that allow our students to matriculate to whatever level of program they are ready to do so. And we also have a program that honors every individual experience level as well. So that process of being part of the team. Amy's in the back there with her microphone, but she runs for the middle school a theater preseason as well. And all of these things are wonderful opportunities so that the first day of school doesn't feel like the first day of school. And then I could talk forever about the way we've designed curriculum to make sure everyone has a pathway and no one runs out of runway.
What percentage of the 9th graders are new to the school versus holdovers from 8th grade?
Nina, do you want to take that?
Sure. We have about 95 students in our 9th grade, and 60 of them come up from our 8th grade, and about 35 are new every year. The question is if it's similar for 6th grade. It is similar. We have about 45 students in our 5th grade, and then that grade will grow between 60 and 65 students. We start small in the lower school, and we add every year. What's really nice about that is that kids are really used to welcoming new students every single year. So we have often 10 new 7th graders and 10 new 8th graders and 10 new 10th graders, and maybe only 4 or 5 11th graders, but these kids have been having new students join their class all along, so you're not joining a class, even if you're joining in 10th grade, it's not a class that the whole group has been together since kindergarten and you're the one new kid.
Right. Thanks. Anything else? Yes.
Thank you for taking my question. Marnie, you mentioned internships. Could you elaborate a little more about those opportunities for kids, I presume, in the upper school?
Yeah, this is primarily an upper school experience. It's usually something that our older students are going to do, although we've definitely had sophomores engage in summer internships that were coordinated by the school. Our approach to internships is very much interest-based, so we work with a student and the student's family for sure to match up students with experts in a particular area that they're interested in. This happens, for example, in our open program in the arts, where we find out someone's really interested in architecture, and we have a parent who we know is a member of our community, or we have connections right through our different disciplines and their professional connections to connect that child to an architect from outside of the school to work on a project or to pursue an interest. These are not paid arrangements. They're arrangements that are very much experiential and often dovetail with our independent study program. So a student might do an independent study in junior year that turns into something bigger, right? We also offer, we don't offer, we sort of design, right? A senior May project experience where every student has to identify an internship-like project that they're going to do for the month of May. Obviously, we do still offer advanced placement courses in addition to our advanced seminar courses, so students who are still taking classes in May would attend those courses, but they have an open campus. So they can go to their place of interning or their workplace, and we maintain a broad network of professionals in the area who help support that. We have kids on the board at the Bennett Cancer Center, for example. So there are lots of ways that you can intern in a way that is appropriate to a high school curriculum, if that makes sense.
I was going to suggest that when you go out, the King Cares, I think it's in the table about about community. We have a really robust service learning program at King, and as part of it is, the kids can put as much or as little time as they want to put into it, but those who become really interested and involved in an organization can do things like end up serving on the board and student advisory board or things like that. So there are a lot of opportunities, and I see Nina over there, which means it's time to end. I guess what I would want to say is that what I have seen so far is that pretty much anything that a student wants to do, there is a person here to help them develop that, push, to go deep and to really find ways to engage with it in a myriad of ways. There's no shortage, there's no such thing. I've never heard yet, we don't do that here, we don't have that program. I just haven't heard it. It's always, we'll find a way to do it. Nina?
Thank you for coming today. I hope you enjoy your visit.
Yay!